What's up, my AP Gov squad? What's up? Yo, yo, yo. I'm glad to have you guys back on a Tuesday afternoon. Hope everybody had a great first 2 days. And I know, let's just start it off here real quick with, I just don't know if I tell you guys enough, but I appreciate y'all. I appreciate y'all locking in with me and staying dangerous for the next 16 and a half weeks of this semester, staying locked in, staying dangerous, grinding with me. Guys, it's not an easy course. It's AP Gov. It's college level. It's meant to challenge you. It's meant to make school worthwhile. And again, don't forget, I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to help you, as Gandalf would say from the Lord of the Rings. And tonight's episode, guys, I'll try and make it as fast as possible for y'all. But tonight's episode 1.5, so episode 5 of Unit 1, the Foundations of American Democracy. This is the ratification of the United States Constitution, our second chance or try at government. All right, so yesterday's was the Articles of Confederation and why it was weak, the challenges that were in effect, the first government, right, and this new one that we will create, this perfect Goldilocks scenario government, this federal constitutional system. Okay, so let's dive into it, and let's start off with the learning objective here, right? So explain the impact of political negotiations and big C, right, big C word, compromise at the Constitutional Convention on the development of the constitutional system, this new federal system. All right, so tips here. Don't forget, this isn't just note-taking for y'all, right? This is political tea collection. Boston Tea Party, pun intended, right? Use emojis. Make this fun. Make this bearable for y'all. Make this sticky, memorial. Make this stuff memorable. Use shorthand. This will help you on the quiz on the FRQ. I promise you, doing this and taking advantage of it will help you retain this information. Don't just copy word for word. No. Do not do that. Summarize the main ideas and those aha moments that you see along the way. That's what's going to help you win in May on the AP exam. So let's get it. All right. So let's start it off, all right? Today's episode, we're spilling the tea, right? There it is again, Boston Tea Party, on the OG squad goals of 1787, the Constitutional Convention. This wasn't just some boring history meetup. No, not some boring meetup. There was beef. It was the ultimate political group project, and spoiler alert, guys, there was hella drama. Way too much catch me outside, how about that energy at this convention. We're talking major compromises having to be made that stopped the states from straight up throwing hands and built the blueprint, right? This structure, this house, this blueprint and structure of our second government, the U.S. Constitution, right? Not the foundation. The foundation is the Declaration of Independence. That's our democratic ideals and our mission. And our breakup letter, right? This is the structure, the blueprint which our government must follow. And it will limit the government in separation of powers and checks and balances. All right, so it's all about how power is shared. All right, so let's remember from episode 4 yesterday, let's do some spiral back so you guys can retain some of this information. We exposed how the articles flopped. Harder than a group project without a group chat, guys. And yeah, this is our redo. Teacher, teach. You gave us a redo. You gave us a chance to start again and earn some more points, right? So our redo at government, after leaving a unitary system where we had a king who was too hot and too powerful, and then we went to a confederal system that was too cold, too weak sauce, to this perfect Goldilocks situation where it's just right, this federal system where we share power between the states and a strong central government. So strap in, guys, because this episode's got all the receipts. And you'll need these to flex on the AP Gov exam in May. I promise you, there will be questions on this. So let's get it. Segment 1, the Constitutional Convention. All right, squad, imagine this. The Constitutional Convention, well, it's basically a WWE death match of political nerds. And I'm a nerd, so that's not a knock, right? Of political brainiacs. Big states versus the small states. Big states being Virginia, New York. Small states being Rhode Island. Rhode Island. So this is a no-holds-barred debate royale, battle royale, right? So we have the Virginia plan up first. And here it is. Virginia plan's and Virginia's a big state. It's all about big states flexing on the small ones, right? And they're basically like, yo, we've got more people than you. So we deserve more say in Congress. More people equal more power. It just makes sense. Run us our seats in Congress. We need more representatives than you. All right. And on the flip side, you have New Jersey, right? The small state. So the New Jersey plan was like the small state comeback, right? And they basically were like, nah, fam, we're not getting completely steamrolled by you guys, the big guys. No, whoa. Every state should get equal reps, 2 per state. No matter if you're New York, this massive state, or Rhode Island, this small state, every state should get equal representation. That is fair. All right? And so it's kind of like a linebacker on the Gulfport High football team splitting pizza with a toddler. Everyone wants a slice, especially the toddler, right? And they want it their way. The linebacker wants more. Man, I got to play a football game. I need more pizza than you, toddler, right? And neither side was vibing with the other's plan. So what do we do now, right? What does the linebacker and toddler do? What do the big states and small states do? Enter this guy named Roger Sherman. This dude was from Connecticut, and he showed up like the guidance counselor nobody asked for, but we all needed. His solution: combine the 2 plans. Take the New Jersey plan and the Virginia plan and combine it into the Great Compromise, Big C Compromise. Combine it into the Connecticut Compromise, also what it's called. And in this plan, in the Connecticut Compromise, they decided to combine the plans. And this is what they settled on. They settled on a bicameral, a 2-house legislative branch. Congress would be created with 2 houses. The House of Representatives, which is based on population size, so bigger states get their flex, right? And the Senate, the second house, the Senate, which is 2 reps per state. So small states keep their clout, right? So boom, bicameral legislative branch, 2 houses, 1 balance. No state gets too powerful, and the system stays in check. Beautiful system here. This setup echoes what we talked about in episode 1 about limited government, right? About limiting the government's power. And we did that essentially, again, not just in the 3 branches, but also vertically in like this house in Congress. So within one of the branch, we divided it even further between 2 houses. So balancing power between groups so that no one can go full Thanos on your rights and snap it out of existence. So think of it like your favorite video game's co-op mode, right? Both sides get to play. Nobody dominates the server. And here's an important analogy here that I have in the notes, right? The teacup and the saucer analogy. Beautiful analogy here that I would use with you guys. So think of George Washington sipping some hot tea. And the British, by the way, love hot tea, boiling hot tea. So think of the House of Representatives as the tea. Hot, chaotic, messy. All right, so that's the House of Representatives. They designed it to be hot, chaotic, messy on purpose. And then what do you do with the teacup? You put it on top of the saucer, right? You have a little saucer to go with it. But don't think of the saucer as a holder of the teacup. Think of it as you can pour some of that hot tea into the saucer. And if you know the laws of thermodynamics, all my science wizards and geniuses, right? And entropy and enthalpy, right? Heat exchange. If you pour that hot tea into the saucer, it will cool off much faster, and you can sip it slowly and cautiously and steady, right? So, okay, that's the Senate. The saucer is the Senate. So think of that analogy, and you'll understand why they operate the way they do. So why this matters. This is the OG example of checks and balances. But inside Congress itself, it proves that politics isn't just shouting. It's about finding the sweet middle ground, the Goldilocks place. Right? The Goldilocks situation. that's just right for everyone. And it's really why Mississippi and California and Wyoming and Rhode Island and all of us, large and small states, have some power in Congress. It's power in different ways, but we still have some power. All right, so let's move on to segment 2, how we elect the president. All right, so let's get into the Electoral College T. All right, fam, it's all about the prez this segment. It's not just vibes. It's not just TikTok views that determine who wins the presidency. No. It's a whole system called the Electoral College. And let's spiral it back and throw it back to episode 2, guys, the types of democracy. The Electoral College, guess what? It's elite democracy vibes, 100%. The founders were James Madison level nervous about mob rule. Full direct democracy, pure democracy, this pure participatory democracy was terrifying to the founding fathers, especially James Madison, right? And so they were nervous about mob rule. And so for that, they created the Electoral College system, which is an elite democracy type. So we're having this sharing or this like triple scoop sundae mixture of the 3 types of democracy. All right, so think of the Electoral College like a TikTok duet battle. 2 creators go head-to-head, but the winner isn't chosen by likes alone. No, not popular vote, right? The likes. Instead, the judge, the Electoral College, decides who takes the crown. So why didn't they just go popular vote? Great question, guys. I know some of you were asking. Great question. I'm glad you asked. Well, back in 1787, the founding fathers were low-key shook about straight-up pure democracy. Mob rule was scary. Also, communication back then, guys, they didn't have trains, planes, cars, telephones, internet. No. They had horses, they had feet, they had paper. Communication was dreadfully slow. Let's keep that in mind, all right? And so think of it like it's slower than a group project with no group chat. All right, it'll take eons. All right, so each state gets, and let's break down exactly how we figure out how many electoral votes each state gets. All right, it's a pretty simple formula. So each state gets how many reps they have in the House of Reps plus their senators, which is 2. So think of Mississippi here. We have 4 representatives plus 2 senators. We get 6 Electoral College votes. Places like California and Texas have way more, but they also have more representatives than us. Some would ask, well, why? Why is it like this? Well, an easy way to figure out how many representatives each state gets, it's pretty simple, right? So let's break it down here. In the House of Representatives, you have to have 1 person, 1 vote per district. We have 435 representatives in the House of Representatives. We 435 seats. That means 435 districts. And if America has 330 million people, which we do, around 330 million people, an easy formula here to figure out how many seats we would have, right, is to take that population, 330 million, and divide it over 435 seats. And if we were to do that, we would roughly get 750,000 people per seat. And so in America, when it comes to the federal government's House of Representatives, every district drawn where we have representatives, right, has to have about 750,000 people living in it. Otherwise, if one has 1 million and another has 30,000, it's not equal. Their votes aren't equal. It has to be 1 person, 1 vote. And each district must be about 750,000 people. That's why we have 435 seats. All right, I digress. Let's move on. But here's the plot twist. Most states use winner-take-all systems. Got to know this. Winner-take-all systems. Someone can lose the popular vote. President Trump lost it in 2016 to Hillary Clinton. She had more popular vote. But still become president. Think 1824, 1876, 2000, and 2016 President Trump. So shout out to episode 1 again. Popular sovereignty sounds great. Power to the people sounds great until the system ghosts the actual vote count, which the presidents electoral college system will ghost the popular vote count. So it's elite. All right, so moving on to segment 3, the 3/5 compromise. 3/5 compromise. And guys, don't forget about the swing states here from the notes I gave you. So the script I gave you, make sure you dive into that last part there about the swing states. Swing states are so important in the presidential election. Today, North Carolina, Ohio has always been a state that matters. Whoever wins Ohio wins the election, basically. As Ohio goes, the nation goes. But swing states would be like Florida. Arizona's been a swing state. North Carolina's a swing state. Ohio, Pennsylvania. There's a lot that can go either way. And for presidents to win, they need to win these big swing states. Got it? All right. Moving on. Okay, so let's talk about the darkest compromises. We're going to get serious real quick. Take this seriously. Darkest compromises in the entire United States Constitution. All right? So what do? They struck a deal, the 3/5 compromise. So you have slave states and you have free states, southern states and you have northern states. And yeah, let this sink in a moment. We made a deal, the founding fathers, made a deal that would count slaves as 3/5 of a human. All right, so let's spiral back to episode 1 real quick. All right, so we said natural rights were the foundation of democracy. Here's the contradiction that bothers me. Liberty for some, fractions for others. Liberty for some, fractions for others. Let that sink in, man. Not cool. And it reveals a hard truth. The Constitution was built with contradictions baked in it. But the thing about it is, know this, it's a living document. It's a document that has survived a very long time, over 250 years. And it is riddled with some contradictions, but it's a living document that allows us to alter and amend it to make this document better and more perfect. We've had 27 amendments since the foundation. All right, so let's also remember from episode 4, yesterday's, that slave trade, guys, that and actually let's move past that because I think I stripped that from y'all's episode 4. So we'll come back to it, okay? All right. So would you have walked away? Here's the question: would you have walked away on principle or stayed and compromised at the Constitutional Convention? If you're a founding father in this situation where you're having to make a compromise on should slaves be 3/5 of a person, would you have walked away and not signed and not agreed to this? Or would you have stayed and compromised to get a new government in place in hopes that it will be changed in the coming years? All right, so drop in the comment section, guys, that would you walk away or would you have compromised? And explain why briefly, right? Which one are we siding with? All right, let's go ahead and move on. But before we do, I need to drop something on the slave trade ban real quick, right? So here's another compromise that's dealing with the institution of slavery. Another compromise made, the slave trade ban postponed. So the slave trade compromise was an agreement that Congress, this new Congress who has the Commerce Clause, the power to handle trade between states, would not touch the slave trade until 20 years after the foundation of our new government, our second government, the Constitution. So like 1808 is when Congress could shut down the slave trade for good. And so another compromise here was slave trade would not end for about 20 years, and then Congress could shut it down. So slaves would count 3/5 of a person towards representation, and the slave trade would continue untouched for 20 years. Really two disappointing compromises that were made. All right, so let's move on. Segment 4, the Bill of Rights. All right, let's get into the Bill of Rights. And some of us definitely we've talked about. Some of these we've definitely talked about. in class this week, or at least last week, right? The First Amendment for sure, Second, Third, and Fourth Amendment. We're not going to cover them all today, but we will cover some of the most important ones today. And we will circle back to it in Unit 3, our Civil Liberties and Civil Rights unit. All right? So let's get into it. All right. So picture this. The Anti-Federalists. This is your George Mason, your Patrick Henrys, your Thomas Jeffersons, right? Your Anti-Federalists, your Robert Yates. They saw, they were low-key panicking, right? So they saw this shiny new Constitution with all this federal power and were like, y'all sure turned into another King George situation, right? And they were worried that the government would be all up in people's business, controlling speech, religion, trials, the press, and even their right to throw shade at the Fed or the federal government. So they hit pause. We're not signing off until you lock in some receipts, some protections to our natural rights. And no, Brutus did not present this idea, but Brutus did inspire this idea of a Bill of Rights. And so the Federalists, they were like, okay, chill, fam. We got you. We don't need it. James Madison was quite literally, he's the father of the Constitution, the guy that wrote the Bill of Rights. He quite literally said, there's too many rights to list. This doesn't make sense. Why would we create a Bill of Rights when we're leaving out thousands of rights that we have every day? It just doesn't make sense. But he agreed to it as a compromise to get those anti-feds on board. All right, so enter the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments, the first 10 protections to the Constitution. And the Bill of Rights are at the end of the Constitution. It is a part of it. These are amendments or changes to it. There's 27 at the end. The Constitution itself is set up in 1, the legislative branch, 2, the presidential or executive branch, 3, the Supreme Court, judicial branch, 4, it sets up state rights, federalism, right? The sharing of power there. Then you have, in the following ones, you have the supremacy clause listed, and you have all your amendments, right? So, and also how you amend it and ratify it, right? So this is your Constitution, the structure. So let's list some of our guaranteed rights. You can speak your mind as long as it's not inciting violence or fighting words, right? Can't shout bomb in a movie theater. You can practice your faith. Absolutely. Get a fair trial. Absolutely. Check. I love this. Have the right to bear arms, not your arms, but a firearm. Now, what type of firearm is in question? Always. Can you have a bazooka or landmines? I don't know why you need a tank. Can you publish on social media? Absolutely. Can your boss fire you if you say something critical? Yeah, your job is, they can limit your speech some on social media at your workplace. So you can't post anything every day whenever you want about whoever you want. There are social consequences to that. Keep that in mind. You can get canceled or fired. And not have soldiers crash in your home, your place. So I'm looking at you, Third Amendment, right? We haven't had many issues with that or any since the American Revolution when they quartered their soldiers, the British soldiers, in our homes. All right, so this was the first trust fall moment that made ratifying the Constitution possible. It sent a clear message: the people give power to the government, popular sovereignty, and not the other way around. Hashtag consent is hot. The Bill of Rights drew the line in the sand and said, you can run the country, but you cannot run us. All right? All right, segment 5. We're getting there, guys. Stay with me. Stay with me. I know this is another long one as well, but stay with me. The amendment process. So how can we change it? So let's be real. Change of the Constitution isn't some quick TikTok trend. No. It is much faster than the Articles, which was 13 out of 13 states had to agree to amend that. This one, easier, still difficult. That's why it's only happened 27 times and over 250 years. It's more like a slow burn Netflix series. Drama, build up, a bunch of beefing, suspense, and you got to get everyone on board according to the U.S. Constitution. Article 5 of the U.S. Constitution. All right, and here's the process. Step 1, you have to propose it. How can we propose it? You can either have 2/3 of both the House and the Senate, 2/3 of both the House and the Senate voting yes to a proposal, or 2/3 of state legislatures can do the same, call a convention, but it's super rare. Now, if we get that 2/3 of both House and Senate or a state convention, we move on to step 2, ratification. That means we approve it. And in this case, you got to get 3/4 of all state governments, legislatures. That's 38 out of 50 states to do that and get it passed. Or you can do 3/4 of state conventions. Again, very rare. Almost never happens, right? So this is a form of federalism, right? The states get a say in these amendments, but also the federal government can get a say in it. So the national government. So again, another check on this centralized government here by allowing 3/4 of state legislatures to ratify it. So this process is slow and hard to do on purpose to make sure we don't change the country's blueprint on just a whim, guys. It has to be the most important of things. But when it does happen, it's powerful. This is federalism in motion, the sharing of power between the states and national government. Think that layered cake, or today, that more marble cake, that swirled cake. And they all play a role. No one level of government can just solo the mission. They both are involved. So real talk, think about how wild it is that we've only had 27 over 230, 250 years, however long it's been. That's fewer changes than the iOS updates that we had last year for our iPhones. And that's also what makes the Constitution stable and still relevant today, guys. It's a pretty awesome document, minus some contradictions. All right, so segment 6. We're getting there. Okay, so let's set the scene. It's 1787. The American colonies just dropped the British like a toxic ex, and they're trying to build their own thing. But like every group project ever, they had different ideas. Some wanted a strong national government. Some wanted power in the states. And some were like, what about our rights, fam? So the Constitution was full of compromises just to keep everybody from rage quitting the country. And those compromises didn't solve, those compromises didn't solve everything or every issue. So a key idea here, some of the biggest debates that we still have today, like how powerful the federal government should be, what rights individuals have, and what states can decide on their own, we still fight over, right? They left it pretty vague on purpose. The founders did. Why? Because if they wrote down too many specifics, half the states wouldn't have signed this document, this new structure of government. So now fast forward it today, and guess what? We're still fighting about it. Can the government see your text messages? I mean, come on, we've talked about this. September 11th, 2001, America is attacked. The trade centers are destroyed by terrorists. National security becomes number one priority overnight, totally unstable. But then the government hits us with the Patriot Act, a law that gives federal agencies like the FBI and the NSA, the National Security Agency, right, new powers to monitor our stuff for national security reasons. And that's when the big brother is watching memes start to drop. And it's very real. And so, think about it. The birds aren't real. If you know, you know. All right, so some examples of this. Phone calls are being collected, guys. Emails are being monitored, and your Alexa definitely being tapped into, most likely, right? I don't want to get canceled by anyone here. I'm assuming Alexa is listening. All right, so this set off huge constitutional debates. Do we protect national security at the expense of our personal privacy? Supporters say we got to keep America safe. If you're not doing anything illegal, what's the big deal? Critics say, Fourth Amendment. Think about it. Hello. Unreasonable search and seizure without a warrant is not okay. So imagine if your mom went through all your texts, snap memories, and location history just to make sure you're safe. Would you feel secure or violated? That's the same thing, but make it federal. All right, let's keep going here and finish it off, right? Public school debate. Here's another playground of federalism, right? Now let's talk about education. When debates get heated faster, this is where debates get heated faster than a group project where one person does all the work. Here's the tea, guys. Education is mostly run by the state government, state and local governments, not federal. President Trump just deregulated the National Department of Education because states and cities should have power over it, is what he says, right? But the federal government has gotten more involved over time before President Trump just deregulated. So let's talk about some moments. Should schools teach evolution or allow creationism in school? Right? So the idea that we come from primates, or the idea that we were made in what is it, 7 days and 7 nights from the Bible, the creation story? And what about the guy that created a fake religion called the FSM, the Flying Spaghetti Monster Faith, just to cause issues with what was being taught in school? All right, here's another debate, right? That's being discussed in education. Should we ban books or promote diverse voices? Should schools censor what you read? Should they take things out of the library, like To Kill a Mockingbird, because it says some words, some racial slurs? And then should AP African American Studies be allowed in public schools? I believe, if I'm not mistaken, guys, Florida has removed that from the curriculum. So now let's talk some more about schools, guys. Not just complain about your 8:20 a.m. start time, right? But to dig into some deeper, bigger areas that involve national and state tension, right? In theory, state and local districts run public education, but in the 2000s, the federal government was like, what if we stepped in with VIBES and standardized tests? Enter No Child Left Behind. In 2002, law passed by President George W. Bush. Congress passed the bill. Bush signed the bill. He passed the No Child Left Behind Act. And what did this do? The goal was to raise accountability in school systems. They wanted to improve test scores, right? Good reason. And make sure every student succeeds. No one's left behind, regardless of your zip code. Sounds amazing, but here's the catch. Schools had to test, and test some more. That's why you guys test so darn much, is because of No Child Left Behind. If students didn't score high enough, schools would get penalized because of your test scores. Teachers, guys, we got stressed. I wasn't teaching them, but you get the point. Students, burned out. Now, I was a student then, and I was burned out. Schools, underfunded because students were not achieving the high grades that were the scores that were expected. So it's like saying if your TikTok doesn't go viral in 24 hours, they're going to delete your account. Does it motivate? Yeah, maybe. But is it fair? Nah, I don't think so. So what's the big debate here? Should the federal government set education standards, or should states control what students learn? Even today, people argue over how much the government should control in education. The federal government gives grants, money, to school systems, to education systems, right? So it wants to influence something, they'll offer us grant money. States say, back off. We know our kids better than you do. Right? So it's all about this balance here between states wanting the federal government to back off and allow them to operate and do what they think's best for their kids. But also it's about money. And the national government does a great job of incentivizing the states with categorical grants or block grants, which we'll talk about. And maybe they'll attach those grants to child daycare or some program they want you to do, right? And they'll dangle that money over the states, which usually the states will grab and take because they love the funding, right? And for that reason, they'll implement Common Core, which most people hated. You guys were in elementary school when that was passed through. Or maybe something like critical race theory. Y'all definitely need to go down that rabbit hole and talk and go check out critical race theory. A lot of people don't want to teach this stuff because it is controversial. And then there's a lot of people who thinks it should be discussed because the past was rough and tough and not quite equal, and that needs to shed some light on some of our current issues today. So whatever you believe, guys, let's just get this through. The Constitution didn't settle everything. And these debates are still happening today. Debates we have today go straight back to the beginning of our founding of this document, right? Our founding fathers never defined how much surveillance is too much, whether education should be federal or state issued, or a state issue, or how to protect individual rights without giving up national security. So think on that. All right, so that's a wrap, guys. These compromises were messy, imperfect, and sometimes straight up problematic. And I yapped a long time today, but this one is so very important, guys, to understanding why we're at where we are today. It built the blueprint, the structure for this new and ongoing American experiment that we're living in today. This living document that is pretty awesome, but has some contradictions. So don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, tell the world. And until next time, guys, stay bold, stay curious, stay locked on Gov. Mr. Helms out. Peace.